You won't be down here. It's all going to be in the middle there.
Well, I thought when it broke, it came through the middle here.
Yeah, no, ignore those sets. It's going to peak out the back right in the corner.
To do that.
That's fine. You'll see the whole thing there.
Right. Oh, here we are. Cool. So I thought I'd leave that bit in just so if you did want to do some filming while you were at the wave, you'd know the best place to set your camera up to. And I'm surfing the left, and if you were surfing the right, you'd want to sort of mirror image that shot of the apex. And yeah, and then if you, like I say, you might want to film yourself because it's quite handy getting a bit of footage to see what you want to work on as far as, yeah, the body mechanics of what you're throwing down. Right, you can see everyone's starting to paddle out. You know for a fact that the people right at the front, they've been there before because they know if they get in there and then line up, the trick is to line up with one of these markers on the wall, and then some sneaky buggers, they get a wave, and if they get a wave off on the first wave of the set and then paddle straight back out, they'll get the last wave of the set as well. So they get 2-for-1 deal, isn't it? 2 for 1. And it's, yeah, they're just, yeah, tactics, that is, tactics. But me and Paul, who you heard there, Paul Barrington, legend, yeah, we're right at the back because we were setting up cameras, and then we heard the call and we went tootling on down. So we're not even in shot yet, but you'll see this guy at the very front. He'll get ready and start to mark up with one of these markers, because that's what you do. You mark up with one of these, and as the wave starts to break and form in this apex, it feels like you start to get sort of sucked back. So you really got to sort of hold your position against this wall. And yeah, that's your sort of like, whereas with a normal wave, you see it come in, you paddle left or right or whatever, and you line up nicely with it. And there's, yeah, and you don't get this sort of weird feeling of the water level suddenly sinking underneath you as you start to paddle. It's like paddling almost into a standing wave. This is Paul here. They're coming into shot now, chatting to myself, who probably had about 300 questions because I'd never surfed there before. You can see the conditions are nice and clean. I don't remember it being particularly windy. It was quite cold because we were coming into Christmas, coming into the winter, and that still water doesn't half feel pretty cold if it's not got any sun on it. Whereas sea temperatures at this time were still all right. But yeah, we're effectively in a big pond. You can see me coming into shot here. Little point to watch out for is in these things, it's like a mesh here that runs along like this little bit of fence. And you've got to be careful you don't get too close and catch your fins in it. Or if you're not wearing boots, your toes. Yeah, because like I say, it is a mesh. So in a minute, you'll see me sort of sit up on my board, and I sit quite close to it. And Paul just says, oh, watch out. You want to make sure you don't catch your fins on that, because, yeah, that could ruin your session. So, but like I say, you can see this guy starting to line up, and in a minute, it will start pumping through. Yeah, it's quite sort of unnerving, really, when you first get into one of these things. If you've never surfed it before, you sort of sat there all bunched up. Suddenly it gets very tight, bottlenecks up in that apex there. And you sort of sit there with anticipation thinking, right, so what's about to happen here then? But that's why I was happy to be at the back, because I thought, well, if I sit at the back of the queue, I can get a good idea of where everyone's taking off, how hard you've got to paddle and that sort of thing. So yeah, now it's just a waiting game. What they do on this expert setting is, I don't know whether they still do it like this, because yeah, it's been this was a couple of years ago, but they would send out a couple of smaller sets. So your first couple of waves were a little bit smaller than the bigger ones, because this, like I say, is on the expert setting. And in a second, you'll see it all start to move. Yeah. And then I'll let you get a feel of it, and I'll probably just shut my mouth. Or will I? Or will I? Yeah, but like I say, you've got these markers. We actually had a bit of a splat on the wall that we were marking up with. But there's different markers for different settings and different ability levels and different board size. And imagine, you know, if you're on a longer board, you might want to be getting into it a little bit earlier. But yeah, I think in a minute it's gonna sort of start to pump through. Well, so once he starts getting himself ready, that guy right at the front, you can see him having a little chat with the dude up there. Here we go. So there's the first sign of movement. See, and you sort of get sucked back into the apex. And here he goes. Paddle, paddle, paddle. Boom. And then these are generally the waves you see on the clip, you know, that first wave of the set where it's all just nice and clean and, oh, it's lovely. And like I say, this is the expert setting. Yeah. But the first couple of waves, like I say, they tend to send out are a bit smaller. Yeah, it does look lovely. Makes me want to go back. But feel free to turn the volume down, put some music on, you know, and enjoy. It's, yeah, don't have to sit here and listen to me. The advantage of having a volume control. I don't know where I am. I think there's a couple of bodyboarders first. I know I was at the back. That is a nice little wave. This guy looks very excited to be there. Oh, I think that's me there taking off out the back. I'll do a bit of a cut back and then I'm like, oh, actually, I've nearly lost this. And yeah, it's, yeah, I can't say I was on form. There's Paul behind me. He was just determined to get barreled on every wave. And now you can see it just starts to get a little bit roughed up now, see? You know, it's almost like a bit of onshore sort of caught it, but it's not, it's just all the backwash that you start getting off of all the waves. So it's, yeah, it does end up getting quite chopped up. But you can see the wave itself has, yeah, still got a nice little bowl on it. I've got to say, that is what I like about these wave pools, is the consistency. You know you're going to get waves, and you know you're going to get a couple of sections. Yeah, see, I think he's already had 2 waves, Mr. in the green. It's quite handy having him in there. It shows you, yeah. See, if you fall off like that, you paddle across, you can end up jumping the queue, because it's a bit like sort of paddling out at a normal beach in that respect. There is a little bit of a sort of, people fall off at different parts, and people know, oh, if you get quickly back into that queue, you might get 2-for-1 deal. Like I say, I was in no real rush really. I was happy to just figure it out. But yeah, you can see how sort of chopped up it now is, and then it's just giving it enough time to settle. So they let everyone regroup, and a bit like surfing normal beach, you know, you've got to wait for the sets. So they think, all right, let everyone regroup and just let it settle a little bit. But yeah, you've got a lot of water moving there. But that's the plus side of surfing a wave pool, in the sense you've got the consistency of knowing that waves are going to keep coming, and the shape of the bank. You know, when you surf a beach break, you can have some nice bowly little waves like this, and you know, where you could argue that, yeah, it gets a bit chopped up and it's not as perfect as you sort of it looks in the adverts and all of that, but you, like I say, you do get the consistency of the bank. In a country like the UK, the tide moves so quickly, sometimes you see the waves and, oh, low tide looks fucking banging. And then you get down there and it's like mid-tide tide, it's come off that bank and it's rubbish. Or vice versa, you know, you want the high tide and, you know, you end up getting down there and it's lower tide and it's rubbish. So at least with this, even if you do get a bit of wind on it or it does rough up a bit with a bit of the backwash, you do at least get that consistency of the shape of the bank. So here you go again, see? So now it's not quite as clean as it was when we had that first wave before. So you can imagine it's going to get a little bit more chopped up. But it's still a nice peeling little wave, and it's still got a nice steepness to it. And like I say, with this setting, I think they do like this. You can see these waves aren't that big. Not that they get massive, but they do turn it up a bit, I think, on the next set after this. And I always found on this expert setting, you've got sort of room to do a nice big sort of wrapping style turn. Don't hook it back too much, but a nice good carve of that top bit. And then you go into a really bowly bit of the wave. But yeah, if you're quick, you get a nice sort of, again, you know, yeah, just lay it on rail a bit on that first bit. You just got to get up a bit like that, and then, yeah, and then boom into this section. But yeah, that's me there. And yeah, that wasn't a bad little wave, and yeah, I wasn't that on form. But you could do a lot more with that section if you're that way inclined. That's where, you know, through repetition, I'd love to say in a few waves time I'm really throwing tail on that section, but I think it took a whole session just to get used to it. But this guy surfs well. Oh, jinxed him, see. And this guy's just very erratic. He's just amped. He's amped. Oh, and then someone do a little cartwheel out the back there. They'll be fishing for a 2-for-1 meal deal. And it feels like they've turned it up a little bit now. I've got a funny feeling it starts to, you get a little bit more oomph for your buck, which is probably why you're seeing more people just getting sort of lip launched. Yeah. And then nailed. You're supposed to, if you come off there where he did, it's not paddle across, it's just go down the side of the wall. But cheeky bastards are always trying to sort of cut across because they want to get like back out for another one. But you're not. You're supposed to come in properly and get out of everyone's way. Oh, he had a good one there, look. And like I say, some waves will, because you do inevitably get this backwash on it, not every wave's the same. And then depending on the turn you do when you first take off also adds to how the water's displaced on that wave. But yeah, and I think now they actually turn the setting up a little bit. So it'll all settle. You know, obviously the downside to surfing a place like this is, yeah, you're not in the ocean, you're not having to sort of, you're robbing yourself of learning to read waves and, you know, and all that sort of stuff. But if you take that away from it for actually developing your body mechanics through repetition, they are good in that sense. You can't knock them really. It's, yeah, if there's something you really want to nail down, but you could argue it's for people with a bit of cash because not everyone can afford it. You go, but to be fair, nowadays, the way they've commandeered car parks, fucking the price you pay down there and on fuel, there's not a lot of difference in it really. You can end up spending God knows what on fuel and car parks, driving around trying to get waves, and end up going in and it's not breaking on a great bank, or it's not particularly good that day, or the wind's rubbish, and all that time and effort and money, and you don't really get any waves. So at least with this, you put your time and money in, you know you're going to get waves. But yeah, it's not the same. It's not the same as going down to the ocean and the whole experience, because let's face it, sometimes some of your worst surfs have been some of your best outings, you know, the stories that go along with them. So it's the journey. Bit like life, man. But yeah, it's that. So, whereas it feels a bit different, all sort of cuddled together there, just in a big swimming pool. You know what I mean? It's there's like, it feels a bit like a rent-a-crowd when you're up in that apex bit, because you're like, oh, here we all are then. Yep, all right. But it's, yeah, it's definitely an experience. It was, yeah. And being so cold when I was there, you know, we're in like, you know, proper booties and gloves and that, and it's like, well, some went without, but God, that water felt icy, and that did make it feel a little bit more like we were outside. Well, we are outside, but you know what I mean, the great outdoors. There's Paul, yeah, starting to go for the barrels. But yeah, if you went in summer when that sun's on it, probably feel like, yeah. Little tropical paradise. Yeah, this is me. Can't really remember this. Yeah. I know what I did wrong there. I need to just get up there and clip that white water and come back on it. I just held that rail just too long. My problem was I sort of tried something a little bit different on every wave, and I hadn't surfed for a little while. Then it was just, I feel like I could have happily spent half a day out there on that. And the worst thing was, I thought when I was there doing this session, I actually thought this was the advanced setting, not the expert setting. So I thought this was the warm-up to the bigger stuff. And it was only when Paul went, no, this is the expert one. The next one we're doing is the next level down. And I was like, So I was going at this a little bit half-assed, thinking, well, if this is the advanced, the expert's going to be amazing. Little did I realise this was as good as it was going to get for me. So it would have been nice to be able to have the option to do it the other way round. So we did this session at about 6 or 7 in the morning. I think it was 7 o'clock in the morning this started. And then we had the next session at 8 o'clock. And which, again, if people want to comment, I can always put that session up. But it's like this, just a bit smaller. But yeah, it was, we did this 7 to 8. And I thought the sessions were the other way round. So I thought we were doing the advanced, then the expert. So I was sort of just playing with this, finding my feet and all of that, not going for it too hard. And then, yeah, when I suddenly found out halfway through that this was as good as it gets, and it was actually going to get, yeah, for me, because I wanted the bigger stuff, but it was actually going to get smaller, I was, a little bit deflated. And yeah, but it was still good. I would just like to have done it the other way round. Anyway, I'll give you a moment's peace. Let you watch the next bit in peace. Although you've probably already turned the volume down. I would have. Well, I'll let you watch the rest of it in peace. I'll probably chip in at the end with a couple of little comments. But yeah, 20 minutes is probably enough of my narration. Now time to put in a little bit of background music, isn't it, you know? But I do, yeah, it's nice. I just thought it would be nice for people to be able to see a session totally uncut, warts and all, you know what I mean? This is what it's like from start to finish. So if you haven't been to a wave pool before or anything like that, you can see what it is all about. If you've got any questions about the wave pool, be sure to just ask me in the comments section, and I'll be sure to answer you. Yeah, but like I say, I did enjoy my time there, but yeah, it's never going to be the same as surfing in the ocean. And like I say, the whole point of sort of the whole part of being a surfer is that, you know, the sort of journey to getting down there and sort of checking conditions and that sort of stuff, and getting to know about the ocean and weather and all these other things, rather than sitting in what is technically a sort of glorified swimming pool. But as every surfer knows, is you just want to get better sometimes, and a place like this is a great place to do it. You know what I mean? Just to hone a few skills or try out a few new boards and stuff. And, you know, sometimes you get a new board or something and you just want to go down and give it a go. And every fucking surf you're going out, it's that the waves are closing out, or it's really flat faced and you can't get the board going, and you think, well, I don't want to blame the board because the surf was terrible, it's cross shore winds, or, you know what I mean, all that. Whereas when you've got something like a wave pool that you can just go and guarantee to get some nice peeling waves, and you're going to get some. You can really, you know, go through kit and stuff like that. Although you do have to realise a lot of these wave pools, you know, they haven't got salt in the water. So the boards, the buoyancy of a board is never going to be the same in there as it is, you know, surfing out in the ocean. But how it turns, a lot of the sort of, you know, board mechanics and stuff like that is, yeah, you could still get a good feel of it in a place like that, and you can really fucking hone in on your body mechanics, you know, of how you're hitting the lip or going for an air or whatever. But whatever you want to do, you watch a wave like this, and again, this is why it's good looking at a bit of footage like this, so you can identify sections that you think, right, there's a section there that I can practice throwing the tail, or this, something, the other, you know what I mean? Or for us older guys, it's like, just starting to, get some good smooth body mechanics down, just hitting a nice lip, ka-cha, little chwapa here and there. But yeah, it's, let's say, I'll let you watch out the rest of it in peace. But yeah, I just thought you might like to see a whole session uncut. So here we are on the last set of the session, and I've finally moved myself from the back of the pack to the front, get a nice clean one. Although this is the first wave where I actually finally have a little go at throwing the tail, but I don't transfer my weight onto me front foot and push the tail out. I just keep my legs together and balls it up, and then proceed to sort of look over my shoulder and see everyone else starting to go for nice little barrels. But yeah, like I say, I would definitely recommend it if it's something you're thinking about. It's definitely a good day out and a good experience. Like I say, it's not the real thing. It's not just out surfing in the ocean. But, you know, if you really want to nail down the body mechanics of certain turns and try out a new board and stuff, then it's definitely a good place to go. And like I say, sometimes you can end up spending thousands of pounds on a surf trip, you know, traveling halfway around the world, only to sort of get skunked on the waves, and it ends up being flat or stormy or something. You think, I just spent 3-4 grand there and literally got nothing. Whereas, so when you think about it like that, you think technically you could do, you know, doing a sort of couple days at the wave pool, you think you could really hone your skills. But yeah, it's, you know, it is going to cost you a little bit. But yeah, I definitely say I enjoyed my time there. And, you know, and one bonus is you don't have to float around in lots of raw sewage, you know. Ha. Yeah, but let's say, hope you enjoyed seeing it uncut. It just allows you to see the whole session. So if surfing a wave pool is something that you're thinking about, then yeah, I would definitely recommend it. But anyway, hope you enjoyed the video, and yeah, if anyone wants to see the advanced setting, I've got that. I could always load that up. Just chuck a little comment in the comment section below. But other than that, it's time to go and get a little bit of breakfast, isn't it? Yeah!